back to the Christian Women's Healthcare Podcast. We are so glad that you are here with us. If you have been following along for the month of October, you know that we are focused on sugar this month as we move into the holiday season. It is everywhere. If you listened to last week's podcast, you heard us talking to you about things that we were shocked about as we began our nutrition journey about sugar. And this week, we are going to talk to you about all the different names of things that are actually sugar that you may not know are really sugars. So to kick this off, I'm going to hand it on over to Sherry and let her start because she's got the biggest list that I know of.
So I'll start with a few names of sugar and you guys can add in. One that's super healthy is agave. So agave nectar, that is like a really healthy sugar, right? That's what we were led to believe for quite a while, right? Y'all remember? That was the one to go to. It's actually like high fructose corn syrup. So that's definitely one you want to stay away from. Barley malts, beet sugar. Beet sugar is usually genetically modified. And there's, I'm trying to find some that maybe you wouldn't know. There's like castor sugar, but there's, I would say the things to look at is if it ends in OSE, it's a sugar, so know that if you're looking at a label and you see a word that ends in OSE, that's sugar. So there's a lot of different ones like that, like fructose and galactose and glucose and, crystalline fructose, and it's just there's just so many. The names for sugar: maltose, lactose. There's so many different names. So, Brianne, you got some?
I'm not gonna use them all up. Do have some. I'm trying to pull them up because I have a lot of them.
I think one thing that comes to mind is the tapioca syrup, like tapioca and
tapioca.
Absolutely.
And brown rice.
Yeah, I would. Anything with syrup is a giveaway too.
Yeah. Anything with syrup.
But tapioca starch is an actual. They use it to emulsify, but it's sweet. It causes insulin resistance. Anything tapioca does.
So here's some interesting ones that don't have sugar or syrup in the name, because that's kind of obvious. The ones that have, whatever sugar or whatever syrup. There's dextrin, dextrose, diastatic malt, diastase, ethyl maltol, fructose, which I think a lot of you know, obviously the fruit juice concentrates, galactose, glucose solids. We all know high fructose corn syrup, honey, icing sugar, invert sugar, lactose, malt, and maltodextrin, maltose, mannitol, muscovado, pinocha, sucrose. I think we know that. Treacle is also another, it's kind of like a molasses type thing. So yeah, there are just a ton.
I think somebody said it right last podcast, but if you can't say the name, you should be eating it.
Yeah. Another one that they try and zip in there is fruit juice. And if I missed somebody saying that, I apologize. But fruit juice is also pure sugar. There's no health benefits whatsoever to sweetening something with fruit juice. You're truly just getting the sugar from the fruit.
Yeah, it's like corn syrup. Like it's extracted from the fruit, and you're just getting pure sugar.
Did anyone say nectar? Nectar?
No, but that's also a good one.
I think so. No. Yeah.
I think it's interesting all the different kinds of sugar. Like on here, there's also cane juice, which is another form of
evaporated cane juice.
Right, exactly. You also have caramel. But then there's like beet sugar, Barbados sugar, buttered syrup,
stevia. We still got those names
Date
too.
sugar.
Yeah, those are some of the
caster
the
sugar,
natural sweeteners that
syrup, there's just, they even make syrup out of rice. I mean,
Yeah.
turbinado sugar, yellow sugar,
Mhm.
but like, I mean, what kind of society comes up with hundreds of types of sugar? What kind of society, processes things to the point where all of them, you're just taking the sugar out? That's all we want is the sugar. You know what I mean? Like, what have we come to where everything has to be made into sugar?
yeah.
Well, it's so you can have a lot of variety of sugars in one food, and then it's
Good
kind of
point.
hidden too, sort of, right?
Good
Right, then they don't have to
Because we'll
list it as
call
the
it
first
this,
ingredient.
but people don't know what that is, right? So it can't be counted as sugar. It's not sugar. It doesn't say sugar.
Right.
Oh, Lord.
Well, and that's the
To make
scary
you feel
thing,
eaten
is that's what, I'm sorry, Julie.
to make you think you're eating healthy.
Exactly.
Mm.
The FDA has given
Yeah.
carte blanche to a lot of these companies that are using those products to not have to list them as a sugar in their food if there's less than so many grams of it in their food. And so what they'll do is they'll add little
Mhm.
bits of this and little bits of that and little bits of that, and that's why you see so many sweeteners in one product, because they don't have to
Mhm.
list it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Mhm.
Yep. And it's intentional because we know that sugar is the leading cause for diseases. And
Yes.
so, and they put these things in there intentionally so that you become addicted. So you just eat more, and it's a plot. They want us obese and fat and have non-compliant health care and have a sugar addiction.
Because it makes us dependent on someone else to take care of us.
Mhm.
Yes. And it's all about the bottom line. Let's, follow the money. And
Yeah.
we will find who's
Absolutely.
in control of the narrative when it comes to food.
That's probably the one thing that my husband and I will not argue about, but bicker about a little bit here and there, is how irritated and angry I get because our government allows all these processed foods into the foods that we can buy on the shelves. And these companies that have done all of their research know the damage that they're doing to our bodies. And then they'll create these foods for other countries that don't allow these products. In those countries, it's much healthier than here. And he's like, but those people make that choice to go buy that food. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not educated. And these companies know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
Yep.
There's no government
Get them addicted to it.
force out there that's going to say, oh, let's tell schools to start telling kids so they can tell their parents. And, that's never going to happen, because the more dependent we are on medicine, the bigger the pharmaceutical industry gets to grow. And it's just a really ugly place to be in. And I think that's our biggest mission in this collective, is to get the word out and help people know that there's a bigger, better way to die with dignity and solid brain health and functioning kidneys and liver. And
yes, there's a better way to live your life to the fullest. And it doesn't
Absolutely.
involve all those
Yeah.
processed foods that are destroying your health and your brain.
yeah.
Definitely.
Well,
High
so
fructose corn syrup is one they don't allow over in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a big one. So corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, not allowed.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Julie.
they must.
So there's a lot of not allows and there's a lot of negatives. For somebody that doesn't know, let's say somebody's listening and they're saying, well, what do we eat? What is the sugar that we should be eating?
Well, I think
What is the
realistically, we
sugar
shouldn't be eating
choice?
any sugar unless it's very rare.
Yeah.
If you
So
saw
my go-tos are maple syrup and raw honey.
Yep. Those are probably the top two choices that I would recommend if you are going to eat something sweet. Raw honey is like the most natural form of sweetener that there is on the planet.
as long as it's raw.
Right, as long as it's raw and unprocessed. Like if you buy it off the grocery store shelf, probably it's going to contain some corn syrup and other additives that they allow, and they're still allowed to call it, raw honey or whatever. So if you can get raw honey from someone local, like that is your best source
Mhm.
for something sweet.
Yeah, there
But,
shouldn't,
you
there
know,
should not be a label on honey. It
no,
should just be straight up honey.
But then you also have to consider how much of it you're eating in a day.
that's the thing.
Mhm.
And honey is more expensive. So if that's the only sweetener that you use and you're like, okay, this is expensive, I'm gonna just like use as little as much as this as possible, you know, over the next however long, then we're getting back to our roots, right? Where they had one bag of sugar for 4 people for a whole year instead of, you know, 150 what we're consuming now. So that's just, yeah, that's a no-brainer. That's getting back to where you need to be, where it's a special treat for special things and it's not an everyday thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
There are a lot of spices on the shelf that can give you natural sweetness, in particular cinnamon and clove. They can really sweeten
Vanilla.
something up for you so that you can have
Mhm.
that little bit of sweet that you think you need, which you don't really need, but we like flavor. We're bred that way. And abstain. And that's kind of the biggest thing.
Mint is also that way too. Yeah.
What?
Mint is also
Mint,
that way too.
yes. Mint is
Mhm.
great, especially for staving off hunger. Mint's a great appetite suppressant.
It's so
Mhm.
delicious fresh.
Mhm.
Fresh mint is really
Yeah.
the best, no comparison.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Get in your water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We just have gotten too over the top with how much sugar has been put into our food that we have been, that bar's been set so high. It is, you know, for us to then come down off of that and get back to that, you know, just using very little of it.
Yeah.
It's a process.
It
You know,
definitely.
Well,
to
and
come
we
out
used
of
to
it.
say shop the perimeter, right? You shop the perimeter of the store, but now a lot of those items even have added sugars in them. You really, really have to pay attention to what you're eating. And by no means are any of us perfect, but it's just the reality. It's the knowledge that you still have to look at perimeter foods. If it's not coming from a butcher, if it's not an organic vegetable, if it's not,
Mhm.
you know, a raw cheese, you really have to look at it and see what it is that you're buying, because I've seen milk with added sugar in it. I've seen, and I don't mean chocolate milk. A friend of mine showed me a fruit juice the other day that she had taken a picture of that actually had bugs in it, like added bugs. Yeah, they used the scientific name for it, but they had somehow found a way to add bugs into their orange juice. I mean, it's just insane, the things that are going in the
Exactly.
foods around the perimeter now. So you really do need to pay attention.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is just to be intentional. You know, you're not going to be able to do it 100% all the time,
Yeah.
but just be intentional about it. Just pay attention to the ingredients in the foods that you're buying and just do the best that you can, because even making small changes is going to make a dramatic impact on your health.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm also a creature of
Yeah.
habit. I believe if you don't have a huge variety in your diet, you're less likely to overeat and eat a lot of things. So like I eat a certain type of meat. I eat, red meat and chicken wing. That's pretty much my go-to. Eggs. And, that's pretty much it.
Well,
Because
I think that you're
but
cut
the
down
point-
anyway. 'cause
Okay,
it's
I don't know
sugar.
if I would recommend limiting that much to everybody, but
I know, I was trying to make it. Occasionally I'll have mushrooms, but the point being is even before I got that strict, I mean, I would eat like, a sweet potato every now and again or whatever, but I really try to keep the variety to a minimum, because what I've learned is the more we give ourselves in variety, the more we crave. So that was my experience, and that was the experience of some of my educators. So for me, it worked. If I lessened my variety, I lessened my cravings. Now, granted, I know I went to a different extreme, but what happens is when I do decide to be intentional and break that chain, it's a very short stint because I don't like it like I used to. It doesn't even really feel rewarding. It's to experience whatever the moment is at the time. And that's it.
Yeah.
And then I go back to steak.
See, I think that's fantastic, and I'm so glad that you can do that. But there is no way that I could eat like 4 things all the time. I love being creative with food. I'm a foodie. I like to try all the things, make all the things, and making things healthy, and cooking healthy things for myself and my friends and my family like gives me so much joy. So I don't think I would want to be that restricted. But I understand how that can be super helpful for some people. So some people just don't care that much about variety in their food, or flavors, or like those kinds of things. Like they're like, you know what, if I could eat steak every day for the rest of my life, I would do that, and I'd be just happy with that. And I'm like, you know what, that's great for you. I do not understand that.
I just had that conversation with my husband last night. When that day comes, I will eat a 20-ounce steak every day and be a happy girl.
That's awesome. I love a good steak.
But you know what's funny is I used to think I was a foodie, and I'm really not. I get really bored eating. I don't enjoy the act of eating. I enjoy the conversation and the camaraderie of meals, but I don't actually enjoy the act of eating. I think, Julie, you and I had a conversation about this when we were paddleboarding one time. So I rush to finish eating because I just want to have the time and not the action. So that's probably more of it for me. But I do, when we go out, I look for really good quality restaurants. So
same. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as far as the sugar piece of it, there are people that have been on a sugar habit or a life change habit for years. And when you start, the more you learn about it, and the more you see about yourself and just how you feel about your sugar for yourself, that's when I think the change comes. Is, you start with the awareness, and then you start looking at the amounts, and then you start seeing the change within yourself. But I just don't think that for some, it's easy just to pick up a habit and bam, you've got it and you can't eat sugar. And then for some, it's truly a challenge. It's truly an addiction. So I think it's just interesting to look in to see where you find those sugar things, or what you can do to make those small changes. I know for me, it's still a challenge. And it's a fun challenge just to see what I'm going to like, or, what am I going to make today with no sugar,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think some of it's looking at your food also as fuel. It's to, it's not to enjoy your food, because I think you should enjoy your food. But when you start looking at it as a fuel for your body, then it changes the way that you actually look at it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing I was going to say is, do you know, you all probably do, how to determine how much sugar is in something. So if something has 20 grams of, added sugar in it, that's 5 teaspoons of sugar. So it's another way to look at it. When you pick up that jar and you go, it's got sugar in it, it's the 5th ingredient, doesn't have that much sugar in it. You didn't count the other 5 sugars. But anyway, but when you look at it in that direction, like I showed the jars the other night about how many teaspoons of sugar is in something, when you start looking at it in that capacity of, would you put, 5 teaspoons of sugar? Maybe you would, but 5 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee in the morning, or, in that tea, or in that whatever, when you start looking at it in that capacity, I think it's different. And then you can take the same thing to carbohydrates and look at it the same way as, no, that's not added sugar, but it's going to hit your body the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Same, so it's just another way to look at it, and it's eye-opening, I think.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
Because would you sit down and eat a serving of 5 teaspoons of sugar in something? No. You wouldn't.
Well,
you
but I don't
choose
know.
that for yourself.
I love Julie.
I don't know. I think that's the problem, though. I think that's where we are in the world, is that people do. And I think that when you think about 5 teaspoons of sugar compared to 3 cups of sugar, It's not a lot because, you know, we got people that eat slices of pound cake every day, and think about how much sugar's in pound cake. I'm that pound cake baker, you know, and that's what the Southern people, that's what we love people with, is baked goods. And so it's the cookies and the pastries and the pancakes and waffles and those things and sweet tea. So yeah.
Yeah, that is a huge part
Yeah.
of the Southern like tradition and culture. And
Mhm.
even where I grew up, I
Mhm.
mean, even growing up myself, like we did not grow up in the South, we grew up in the Pacific Northwest, but we sprinkled sugar on everything. So like even my cereal, I put extra sugar on it. Like, you know, we put cinnamon and sugar on our toast. Like anything that you could
Yep.
sprinkle extra sugar on, like we did. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't realize how that was wrong. Like that's just what we grew up doing, you know, like, oh, where's the
Yeah.
sugar for my cereal? You know, to add that to your already
Yeah.
sugary cereal is just crazy. Now
Yep.
that I
Yep.
know that,
Mhm.
but like that's just how we were raised, you know?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And then
probably
now what I've
did.
seen is, so like peas or different Southern dishes, cream corn, where back in the day they used to sprinkle, you know, like some regular white sugar and put some oil in there. Well, now they're switching it up and they're just adding stevia with some, you know, some canola or something else. You know, they're changing, or olive.
Oh,
Um,
I think she was saying olive oil.
I think she was.
yep,
Come
we
back,
lost her.
Julie.
I wonder
Julie, where'd you go?
wonder if her computer died or something.
Well, now that she's touched on it, though, we may as well tap into real briefly, because we're running out of time for our podcast. Next week's podcast, which is going to be on natural sweeteners, and we have an expert in the group on the damages that these natural sweeteners can actually do. So, Miss Brianne, if you want to give them just a little hint and taste of what they'll get next weekend, by all means.
Yeah, sure. So, with fasting and nutrition, like we're always looking at to answer questions for people, and they want to know, you know, what should I eat when I'm not fasting, right? And so we've been doing this deep dive into all different areas of nutrition. And when it comes to sugars, we're being told that all of these natural alternative sugars are healthy. Well, really, it's that the food industry does not have to add how much they put of that natural non-nutritive sweetener on the label, because it doesn't actually contain calories, right? It's non-nutritive, meaning like it sweetens things but without the actual calories. So we're being told that that's healthier because it doesn't have the calories and it doesn't raise your glucose level. The problem with them is that it still raises your insulin level. So you're still having insulin resistance with those sugars. And they are not telling you how much is in the label. So they're adding tons and tons of that, more than they would if they had just used sugar into those products. And so things that they're telling you that are healthy or keto or all these things are actually not healthy. And there's more to it than that, but I'll just leave it at there for now.
That's a great segue to end. Oh, we got Julie back before we close out. Hello.
There she is.
Hi, welcome back. You got that
Yeah, we had
just in
power
time for-
surge.
Huh?
We
You
had
had
a
a power
power surge. Crazy.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
Well, we just had Brianne give a little bit of an introduction to what our next podcast is going to be about, which is the alternative sweeteners that you were just mentioning. But in the event that we are getting ready to close our podcast, did you have anything else that you'd like to add? Because you were right in the middle of a sentence.
No, I don't even remember what it was. So
You were talking about the addition of stevia and olive oil to your creamed corn.
yeah, just those good things aren't always the good things. I can't wait to hear what Brie has to say.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. We have had an incredible time discussing sugar. We have one more week of it with you, and then we will be moving into our November series. So if you have not already listened to our last podcasts for this month, please go back and check them out because they are really, really good. And we are just continuing to dive deeper and deeper into the effects of sugar and what you may not know about it. So thank you again for joining us today, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.